The late-night hush in the diner was almost comforting. The clink of silverware, the low hum of the coffee machine, and the occasional passing car outside made up the soundtrack of Mia Brooks' world. It was nearly 2 a.m., and she was running on fumes, wiping down counters while mentally counting the minutes until her shift ended. She thought it would be a typical night. Then the bell above the door chimed. She didn't look up right away, probably just another trucker or night owl needing caffeine. But the sudden drop in temperature, the shift in energy, it made her glance over her shoulder. The man who stepped inside didn't belong here. Tall, immaculately dressed in a designer suit that practically shimmered under the fluorescent lights, he walked like he was used to owning every room he entered. His expression didn't show fatigue or hunger. It was something else. Like he was searching for something. Mia froze. Her instincts screamed that something was off, but she shook it off. Just serve him. Get through the shift. Go home. She approached his booth with her notepad ready. What can I get you tonight? He didn't even glance at the menu. Black coffee? Hot? His voice was smooth, low, and firm, like he was used to being obeyed. Coming right up, Mia replied, masking her unease behind a tired smile. When she returned with the coffee, he didn't say a word, just reached for his wallet to pay. And that's when it happened. Something slipped out. A photo. It landed on the floor, face up. Mia glanced down, and her breath caught in her throat. She knew that face. The gentle smile, the soft, kind eyes. The woman in the picture was her mother. Mia felt the world tilt around her. She reached down with trembling fingers, picking up the photo. "Where did you get this?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. The billionaire's head snapped up. For the first time, he looked at her, really looked at her. She held up the photograph. "Why do you have a picture of my mom?" There was a flicker in his eyes. Recognition? Shock? Regret? But it vanished quickly. "You're mistaken," he said calmly, taking the photo from her hand and sliding it back into his wallet like it meant nothing. "No, I'm not." Her voice was firmer now, the confusion turning to heat in her chest. "That's my mother. I don't know who you are or why you have this, but I'm not leaving until you explain." He adjusted the cuffs of his suit, face blank. "I don't owe you anything." Then he stood, placed a crisp $100 bill on the table, and headed for the exit. Panic gripped her. She moved fast, darting around the counter. "Wait, please." But he didn't stop. He was already sliding into the back of a black luxury car waiting outside. Mia stepped out into the cool night air, watching the vehicle disappear into the distance, the taillights vanishing like a ghost. Who was that man? Why did he have her mother's photo? And what had her mother hidden from her all these years? The bell above the diner door jingled again as it swung closed behind Mia, but she didn't go back inside. She stood there under the flickering neon, open 24 hours sign, heart racing, the night wind chilling the sweat on her neck. She had so many questions. Her mother, Alice Brooks, had always been a quiet woman, warm, loving, but guarded. She worked double shifts to keep their tiny apartment afloat and never talked about her past, and Mia had never thought to question it, until now. Back at home, Mia sat on her twin mattress, staring at her phone. The clock said 3:12 a.m. Her hands trembled slightly as she searched online, typing the only lead she had. Black car, private driver, tall man, early 60s, suit, East Ridge. It was ridiculous. What could she possibly find with that? But then she remembered the wallet, the gold initials stamped on the leather, CRH. She typed them in. Nothing. Then she added, Billionaire CRH. Suddenly, the search exploded with articles. Charles Remington Hale, Chief Executive Officer of Hale Enterprises. Net worth, $4.7 billion. Real estate, energy, shipping. A kingmaker behind the scenes. Lived in a penthouse across the city. Ruthless, private, powerful. And there, tucked in the corner of one of the older news articles, was a photo of him shaking hands with a mayor at a charity event. Mia stared at it, stomach dropping. It was him. No doubt. The same man who had walked into her diner just hours earlier. But why her? Why now? And why her mother? The next morning, Mia barely slept. Her mom was already in the kitchen when she walked in, still wearing her worn bathrobe, humming softly as she stirred oatmeal on the stove. "Morning, sweetie," Alice said over her shoulder. "Rough shift?" Mia studied her mother's face. Those same eyes, that same smile from the photo. "Mom, can I ask you something?" Alice turned, surprised at her tone. "Of course." Mia walked to the table and sat down. "Do you know someone named Charles Remington Hale?" The spoon clattered to the floor. Her mother's face drained of color. She didn't speak, didn't move. "Mom?" Alice slowly walked over and sat down across from her, hands shaking. She opened her mouth, closed it, then finally said, "Where did you hear that name?" "He came into the diner. He dropped a photo of you from years ago. Why does a billionaire have your picture?" Alice's lip trembled. She looked away, her voice barely audible. "I never wanted you to find out this way." "Find out what?" Her mother closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Then came the words that changed everything. "He's your father, Mia." The air felt heavy, like it had been sucked from the room. Mia sat frozen, her mind racing to process what her mother had just said. "He's your father." The words echoed, each time hitting harder. "That man, the billionaire, he's my father." Alice nodded slowly, eyes filled with a pain that seemed decades old. "I was 22 when I met him," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "He wasn't the man the world knows now. Back then, he was charming, intense, like he could see right through you. He said I was different, said he wanted to help me escape the life I was in." Mia's voice shook. "Did you love him?" "I did," Alice said after a pause. Stupidly, naively. "I thought he loved me too, but I learned I was just one part of a life he kept hidden, a life that wasn't meant to be seen." Mia's head spun. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" "Because by the time I found out I was pregnant, he was already gone. He'd disappeared, no explanation. I tried reaching out, but his people shut me down. I realized then he had used me, and he didn't want a child complicating his rise to power." Alice looked at Mia, eyes shimmering. "I didn't want you growing up feeling unwanted, so I made a decision. I would raise you alone, and I'd protect you from everything he was." Mia felt sick. "He's known about me all this time, hasn't he?" Alice nodded. "I think he always knew, but he stayed away. Till now." Mia stood, pacing the small kitchen. Why now? Why show up after 23 years and act like a stranger? Alice shook her head. "I don't know, but him being here, it's not random. Charles Hale doesn't do random." Just then, the doorbell rang. Both women froze. Mia looked at the door, her heart thudding in her chest. Alice whispered, "Don't answer it." But Mia was already moving. She opened the door just a crack and saw a tall man in a dark gray suit. Not Charles Hale, but someone else. Cold eyes, earpiece. The kind of man you'd expect to be standing in the background of a president's photo. "Miss Brooks?" he asked calmly. Mia said nothing. "I represent Mr. Hale. He's requested a meeting today, 4 p.m. He'll send a car." Before she could respond, he placed a black envelope into her hand and walked away. Mia opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a handwritten note. "There's so much you don't know. Please give me one chance to explain. CRH. Beneath it, an address, a penthouse suite at the top of Hale Tower. Later that day, Mia sat in the back of a sleek black car, driving toward a man she was told had abandoned her before she was even born. Her hands were clenched in her lap. Her mother's words ran on repeat in her mind. He used me. He didn't want a child complicating his life. So why was he reaching out now? What could he possibly want after all this time? As the car pulled up to the private elevator, Mia was led through a silent lobby. No receptionist, no distractions. Just polished marble and glass, and that same uneasy feeling in her chest. The elevator opened to a sprawling penthouse that looked more like a museum than a home. And there he was, standing near the floor-to-ceiling windows, back to her, gazing out over the city. Charles Remington Hale turned slowly, his piercing eyes locking onto hers. He smiled gently, like they were old friends, like he hadn't disappeared from her life before it even started. "Mia," he said, "you look just like her." Mia didn't smile. She stepped forward, chin raised. "You've got 5 minutes. Start talking." Charles nodded. "Fair enough. But what I'm about to tell you will change everything you think you know about your mother and about me." The silence between them was thick, stretching out like a wire pulled too tight. Charles gestured toward a seat, but Mia stayed standing. She didn't come for comfort. She came for answers. "You said you wanted to explain," she said. "So explain." Charles gave a slow nod and walked over to a small table. He picked up an old photograph. It was worn, corners frayed, and handed it to her. It was her mother, but younger, smiling, standing in front of a large estate, and beside her was Charles. Mia stared at it. "So it's true. I loved her," Charles said, his voice low. "More than I ever loved anyone. But what we had, it was dangerous. Not because of her, but because of them." "Them?" Mia asked. "My family." He walked to the window again, hands clasped behind his back. "You think you know the Hale name. Billion-dollar tech empire. Philanthropy, influence. But it wasn't always that way. My father, your grandfather, was a tyrant. He built our empire on secrets, on blackmail, on control. And when he found out about Alice, he gave me a choice." Charles turned to her. "Him or her?" Mia felt her breath hitch. "He said if I didn't cut her off, she would disappear, just like the others. I had no idea she was pregnant. He never let me find out." Mia swallowed hard. "And you just left her?" "I thought I was protecting her," he said. "I thought walking away would keep her safe. But I didn't know what my father had already done. He sent someone to follow her, to track her." Mia's stomach twisted. Why would he care so much? Because Alice knew something about my family, something she was never supposed to see. He walked over to a drawer, unlocked it, and pulled out a file. Inside were surveillance photos, grainy, dated, her mother in them looking over her shoulder, holding baby Mia in her arms. "He's been watching you your entire life," Charles said. "Until the day he died, he kept tabs on both of you." Mia's eyes burned. "You had money, power. You could have come for us." Charles looked down. "You think I didn't try? Every time I got close, something happened. My plane was grounded, my accounts locked. My own people betrayed me. That was the reach he had. Even after his death, I couldn't find you. Until this week." Mia looked up sharply. "Why now?" He hesitated. "Because someone else found you first." She stared at him, her heart beginning to race. "What are you talking about?" Charles opened a drawer and pulled out a USB stick. "There's something on here. A name, a contract, your mother's signature, and a trail that leads to someone very dangerous." Mia took a step back. "What kind of contract?" Charles met her eyes. "An agreement from 24 years ago. Your mother signed it, under duress. It had one condition. If you ever found out who I was, she'd be forced to return something my father believed she took." Mia's voice shook. "What did she take?" Charles was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "A ledger. One that could bring down every man my father ever did business with. Politicians, judges, CEOs. The kind of secrets that kill people." Mia tried to speak, but the room tilted. "My mother never told me any of this." "Because she was trying to protect you," Charles said. "But now that you know who I am, the people who were watching her, they're watching you." Mia's mind reeled. "What do they want?" Charles looked at her with haunted eyes. "They want the ledger, and they think you have it." Back at the small house on the outskirts of the city, Alice Brooks sat alone. She stared at the envelope Mia had left behind, the black one. Her hands trembled. Then she stood and walked to a locked cabinet. From behind the rows of books, she pulled out a box. Inside it, wrapped in old cloth, was a leather-bound book, the Ledger. Her hands ran over it slowly. She whispered to herself, "You weren't supposed to find out like this." Outside the house, a dark sedan sat across the street. The engine was running, and someone inside was watching. The wind had picked up outside Mia's apartment as she sat in silence, the USB stick clutched in her hand like it might vanish if she let go. Her world had shifted on its axis in the last 12 hours, and now she was standing at the edge of something darker, something deeper than she ever imagined. She plugged the drive into her laptop, it whirred to life, and within seconds, a single folder opened. Project Marrow. Inside, documents, scans, names, and one video file. She clicked it. The screen lit up with the grainy footage, time-stamped from 24 years ago. Her mother sat at a table in a sterile white room, pale, lips pressed tight, arms folded. A man spoke off camera. "You know what happens if you don't sign." Alice didn't flinch. Her voice was steady. "You're making a mistake. That book doesn't belong to you." The voice came again, cold and clipped. "You took something from the Hale family, something that belongs to the syndicate. Sign it, or disappear." The camera panned down to the paper in front of her, a non-disclosure contract, a custody agreement, and a clause that read, "In the event of contact between Subject A and Charles Hale, the subject will forfeit protection, and the syndicate will be absolved of consequence." Mia froze. This wasn't just some bitter breakup. This was coercion. Something far worse. Her mother had been marked from the beginning. Back in the small house, Alice was in motion. She moved like someone who had done this before, packing only essentials, burning papers in the sink, erasing digital trails. She wasn't scared. She was angry. A sharp knock echoed from the front door. She stopped. Then, calmly, she reached beneath the floorboard and retrieved a pistol. Another knock, louder this time. Alice opened the door. A man in a dark coat stood outside. Mid-40s, thin frame, sharp features. "Hello, Alice," he said. "It's been a long time." Her face didn't move. "No one calls me that anymore." The man stepped forward, but Alice raised the gun. "Steady." "I don't have it," she said. He smiled. "But your daughter does." Alice's expression flickered, just for a moment. The man saw it. "You should have run farther," he said. "But you stayed, and now she's in play. You know what that means." "I'll fix it," Alice whispered. "You already broke it." And then he turned and walked back to the sedan. The engine revved and disappeared into the night. Alice stood in the doorway, watching him go. Then she picked up her phone. She hesitated only a moment before dialing a number she had long buried in the past. It rang once, twice. Then a woman's voice answered, "Speak." "She found him," Alice said. "They know." Silence on the other end. Then, "We warned you what would happen." "I need your help," Alice said. "You're not part of this anymore." "I still have the ledger," she said. Silence again. Then, "Where's your daughter?" Alice's grip tightened. "They'll go after her," she said, "but they'll have to go through me first." Back in the city, Mia stared at the documents on her screen. One name kept coming up, again and again. Alexander Creed, a corporate magnate, untouchable. No official ties to the Hale family, but his name was listed in the ledger more than any other. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered. "Mia Brooks," a voice said. "If you want to live, don't go home. They're watching your building. You have less than 10 minutes. She jumped up, heart pounding. "Who is this?" The voice was already gone. And then, a sound outside. Mia peeked through the blinds. A black SUV parked across the street. Two men inside, not moving, watching. She didn't wait. She grabbed her bag, the USB, her keys, and ran. Mia ran through the back alleyways of the city, her breath ragged, footsteps echoing behind her as sirens wailed in the distance. She didn't know where she was going, only that she couldn't go home, and she couldn't trust anyone, except her mother. If what the files said were true, Alice Brooks wasn't just an innocent woman caught in a love affair with a billionaire. She was part of something much bigger, a whistleblower, a fugitive, and the last person alive with the complete knowledge of Project Marrow. Mia ducked into a closed coffee shop she used to work at. She knew the backdoor code. Inside, she flipped the USB again in her hand and opened the final document she hadn't dared read yet. Project Marrow, Summary Report, Phase 3. In the event Subject A, Alice Brooks, fails to comply, Phase 3 will initiate under syndicate order. Any offspring must be tracked and retrieved. The Hale bloodline carries the gene. The gene ensures obedience. The project cannot proceed without it. That's when it hit her. They didn't want her dead. They wanted her back under control. She wasn't a witness. She was the key. Mia's entire life. College, her scholarship, the job interview that fell through. The sudden interest from Charles Hale, it wasn't coincidence. It was design. A script written before she was even born. And someone, her mother, had spent the last 2 decades trying to keep her out of it. It was nearly dawn when Mia found the house. An old cabin outside Woodpine, surrounded by trees. A place that looked like it had seen 100 storms and was waiting for one more. Alice opened the door before Mia knocked. For a long moment, neither said a word. Then Mia stepped forward, and Alice pulled her into a hug. No words could cover the time lost or the truths buried. Only the urgency remained. "They want me," Mia whispered. "For the gene. For the project." Alice nodded. "I know." Mia pulled away. "Why didn't you tell me everything?" Alice looked at her with tired eyes. "Because knowing it would have destroyed you, or made you a target. I thought I could protect you from all of it." "You can't protect me anymore," Mia said, "but we can finish it." Inside the cabin, Alice opened a hidden compartment beneath the floorboards. Inside, a second USB, a small black notebook, and a worn-out flip phone. "This," she said, holding up the notebook, "is the real ledger, not the fake one the syndicate leaked to mislead people." Together, they uploaded every document, every name, every transaction, hundreds of pages, onto an encrypted server connected to a whistleblower news agency. Within minutes, journalists around the world received the upload. Alexander Creed, the Hale family, Project Marrow, the syndicate, all of it, exposed. A storm broke across the media like nothing ever seen. CEOs were arrested. Secret programs were dismantled. Protests broke out across cities. The Hale fortune crumbled as investigations mounted. Charles Hale disappeared, his mansion abandoned, his assets frozen. Rumors swirled that he fled the country, but no one knew for sure. As for Alexander Creed, he was found dead in his office. Apparent suicide, but some believe it was a message from the syndicate. No traitors, no loose ends. A new city, a new name. Mia and Alice now lived quietly in the Pacific Northwest under witness protection. The world moved on, forgetting the chaos almost as fast as it had started, but the ledger still existed, and so did those who wanted it buried. Mia sat on a bench overlooking the ocean, a journal in her lap. She turned to the last page and wrote, "I was never supposed to know the truth, but the truth found me anyway. And maybe that's how it always goes. Lies are loud, but truth whispers, until someone listens. My name is Mia Brooks, and this is my story." Subscribe for more true stories hidden in plain sight.